Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Hunt, Senior Project Management Instructor here at Stormwind Epic Live. And a big aspect of project management is the management of risk. This blog is all about how to set up in the beginning, what are good questions to ask, and how do I determine what my stakeholder tolerance levels are for risk. This blog is all about the beginning and planning for risk management. Now, I know that a lot of organizations have risk registers or protocols for risk. And we do know risk is going to happen no matter what. Sometimes it's known. This happens on every single project. Sometimes it's known that there's a probability or a potential, but it's unknown if it will actually occur or what the true impact is going to be. And then at the same time, there are the surprises, the unknown unknowns that pop up throughout the lives of our projects that we have to figure out workarounds for. The best plan of action is to have a plan of action in the very beginning of the project. And it's also really good to take a look at your enterprise environmental factors and try and determine what are the appetites and tolerance levels of not only the organization, but the stakeholders working with you on the project. What is their willingness or unwillingness to embrace or take on opportunities and or embrace high threat situations, to be first to market, to produce something highly new and technical. But you have to look at your organization's enterprise environment in order to determine what their thoughts are on risk. And we can definitely start with risk appetites. This is going to be the tendency of an individual or an organization group of people toward risk. Are they willing to take that on? And if so, what are the tolerance levels? Tolerance is an acceptable variance. Is it plus or minus 5%? Plus or minus 10%, ahead or behind schedule in order to seize an opportunity, things like that. And what are the risk thresholds? This is the quantified limit which we can't pass. It is the ceiling, it is the absolute top. Threshold is the end point. So we need to determine all of these things as per our stakeholders and our organization. The appetite, is the organization willing to take on a project with a potential loss for the potential of a higher gain? And if so, what's the tolerance level? Plus or minus 10%. And the threshold, the loss can't be more than 10% of the total project cost. That gives us some wiggle room in order to try and seize an opportunity. Good information to know as far as tolerance levels. You can find some of that information initially in the project charter, but certainly through communication at kickoff meetings, during stakeholder analysis, sending out questionnaires or surveys to really try and get a handle on how your stakeholders will handle risk on your projects. It could be very generic also, and these are just some examples of generic questions that you can either ask during a kickoff meeting or send out in a survey. How likely are you to accept higher threats for higher gains? What is the worst case scenario? What's the best case? Would you describe yourself as conservative or aggressive in investing money in projects? And what are the absolute extremes in expenditures in time and or money? These are great questions to ask, and it really invokes thought on the responder so that you're actually getting really good information to try and put together a comprehensive approach for risk. Different people have different tolerance levels, and these can actually adapt and change throughout the life of a project. Some people are completely risk averse, not willing to take a chance at all. Some people are tolerant as long as we don't go above or beyond the threshold. Some people are risk neutral, as in, if you can convince me, but as of right now, I could take it or leave it. And then there are risk takers. Some organizations themselves are seeking risk. These attitudes could certainly change based on psychological factors and the individual's personalities and how they handle risk overall. So things that could influence that could very well be that the risk threatens that particular person's level of comfort. they're uncomfortable going forward or taking on a threat for an opportunity. Maybe they're entering into unfamiliar territory or new skill sets which feel uncomfortable, or the risk may affect their level of control over the project, and that might make them risk averse. Or there's some dread or uncertainty that they're perceiving, and that could be real or perception, which is 100%, as we know. Well-informed stakeholders who trust the project managers are usually more eager to take on a risky situation for a higher gain. But you won't know that until you ask the questions and really try and identify where the stakeholders are as far as risk tolerance levels. So when you look at your organizational process assets, these drive some of these tolerance levels, different categories of risk: project management risk, technical risk, quality risk. Do you have any templates that you can use? Roles and responsibilities that have already been designated for risk, or protocols? Whose authority level is it to make decisions about risk? And what lessons have we learned from the past that can drive some of the decisions that we're making right now as far as risk is concerned? A lot of times people say, our organization really doesn't do risk very well. We document some things, but we don't really spend the time that we should. So what do you do if your organization does not have risk planning or strategy? What can we do as project managers to make sure that these strategies get implemented? Well, we could develop a risk assessment process and try and quantify stakeholder risk tolerance levels. Ask those questions. Determine what the thresholds are. Set criteria for different risk levels. Utilize your lessons learned and past risk audits to improve risk management now, today, on your project. And always develop a comprehensive risk management plan. Remember, that's the GPS of risk on your project. What are our processes? What are the rules? What are the techniques that we're going to use so that you can begin to implement better risk management practices across the life of your projects? So hopefully this was good information for you and you can refer back to it. I appreciate your time. And as you know, risk management is a huge part of all projects, but it's also a very large part on the PMP exam. Thanks, everyone.